All right, well, let's start here with Manon. As a grappler, you wouldn't expect her to have fast, long-reaching normals and neutral because that would give her too much of an advantage in getting to her command throws. When people say that Manon has trouble defending against Drive Rush, this footage here from Just a Kid and IDOM illustrates that point really well. The very first move that Just a Kid does is an opening Drive Rush, which IDOM fails to stop here. And it's like, okay, like, you know, he wastes no time basically getting into it. Like, okay, I know what your biggest weakness is, and you're going to eat this. And then so Just a Kid's Jury is able to apply pressure pretty liberally against IDOM, who's a former Capcom Cup winner and the best, in my opinion, Manon around. And he cannot find any real way of keeping Jury out consistently here in this footage that we're showing. And so really good pokes for stopping Drive Rush and neutral are something that just Manon, in my opinion, completely lacks. She has some stuff that, like, you know, it does an okay job, but you start comparing her to the rest of the cast and she really falls apart there. And often her best way to stop Drive Rush, and you can see this in the footage, is crouching light kick, because it reaches so much further than most of her other normals, and it's 5 frames. But this means that whenever Manon comes up against a Drive Rush heavy character, something like a DJ, a Jury, she's probably going to lose, or she's at a very significant disadvantage there. And this is a character who gets messed up hardcore by Drive Rush. And real quick, Steven, have you ever seen anyone Drive Rush in Street Fighter 6 before?
A lot.
Yes, that's what you're going to see a lot of. John, it sounds like you want to say something there. Go for it.
As I consider most of the Manons that I've run into, they tend to be more offensive in the neutral. Like, they will jump, they will go for the, you know, her really long range spinning sweep, or they'll just try to like tag you. But Manon moves forward, and that's what grapplers do. But it's to me, as I think about it, I'm like, yeah, but because if she doesn't, she's just gonna die. And she has, like, I think she has a pretty good anti-air. She should be patient to an extent, but it almost feels as though, you guys let me know if you agree with this or not, her defense is so bad that she almost immediately has to turn over to offense because she doesn't feel like she can rely on her defense, or rather the players that use her tend to feel that way. And you see them pouncing forward with a little more just go for it, some do it energy. And I think that might be a big part of why.
Yeah, and she flails away with some of her normals here, like her sweep and other stuff. IDOM tries to use this basically just to throw out a Hail Mary that he hopes will give him a defensive chance. And that's kind of the name of the game here with Manon. She gets into such rough spots because she lacks an OD reversal pretty much, and like, she has nothing there. Her best way of doing this is actually with a super, and her super one is not too bad with 10 frames of startup. That's actually one of the most key things that you want to look at in terms of if a super is good from a reversal standpoint, is what is the startup frame data on it. And then her level 2 and level 3s have an actual faster startup at 7 frames, so she actually has some pretty decent, relatively speaking, for her in a vacuum, super moves that she can use to get people off of her. But the thing about it is, you're not always going to have access to that, and by the time you get access to these, you might already be dead.
Mm-hmm. It's also worth noting too that her level 1 super side switches as well, which is great if you're stuck in the corner, and that's great for a grappler. I've kind of looked at the supers of these 3 characters pretty closely because I play Lily, so I know all about how to use that defensively and stuff, and where it lacks and things like that. So in terms of these 3 characters, Manon actually might have the best level 1 super from all. I think she does. I can say that confidently.
Yeah,
she has the best level 1 super out of all 3 of them for sure.
I think that Manon probably has the best general defense of these 3, in my opinion, because she does have a farther reaching jab that is her 3 frame. Now, it's not a low like Zangief says, but it is still pretty good for interruptions, and especially at that range. And it can link and go into, she has options from it, so if she lands it, she can go into a no cost knockdown that gives her some Oki. She can go into a drive rush into a metal throw, so I think that's what you're going to want to do most of the time, but it costs 3 bars. Or you could even go into like level 2 if you have it, but she has options, is my point, if she's able to get that jab out, and that jab has some decent reach. I believe she's got crouching jab and standing jab at 4 frames. I don't know if I said 3 either, but if I ever say 3, I meant 4. And so she does have options, but she doesn't have that invincible reversal to be scary with, and that immediately puts you in a certain place. And then her neutral is it's not effective in a lot of ways, so she has to go guessy, and that can be frustrating to fight against because you're going to get swept a couple of times against Manon. You're like, why would you do that there? Well, it's because she's got poor defense to begin with, and a lot of times it doesn't go in her favor, and then she's having to deal with these really bad situations, getting pushed to the corner and such.
Yeah. One area that Manon actually does have a fairly good defense, and that would be her anti-air game. John, you were talking about this before, and that's because she can actually convert from her anti-airs into her command grabs, which builds up her medals. And then if she gets a fully buffed medal grab on you, she's got 5, and she hits you as a punish counter, that is 42% of your health, a little over 42% of your health. It is devastating. And so, as John was alluding to before, this character tends to be like kind of YOLO and kind of wild when she's on defense and sometimes even on offense, because she's designed to have to take risk to win. Like, she's a full-blown grappler character where if you don't do some kind of YOLO stuff, your odds of winning sometimes are going to be fairly dismal, because it's like, well, what does she have? Her long range stuff is all very punishable. A lot of her other stuff is just, it kills her. She's very stubby, and she relies very heavily on momentum to get wins. And the reverse is true, that she relies very, very heavily on breaking the opponent's momentum to get wins, which she's terrible at.
Yeah, but she's definitely one of those. Well, first of all, she's a grappler, hard to balance in the context of a game that's not just grapplers. And I try to think, okay, so what do you even begin to give her to make her better but not broken? But she really feels, especially with the medallion gimmick, that like she's like this, but you give her just one too many little things and the whole thing goes completely in the other direction, and now she's overpowered, or at least a part of her is overpowered, and she's making for a not fun contest to be played out. So she's a little bit of a mystery to me as to where I would even begin.
Yeah. I think with these 3 characters, to begin, as I was saying earlier, a good drive reversal would do wonders for all 3 of them. I don't know if that means uniquely buff theirs or just buff the mechanic in general, probably the latter. But just having an actual drive reversal that can beat like medium buttons and things like that would be really good, because it still makes you spend meter, but it actually gives you some kind of a get off me move that isn't, requiring that you waste your super and to get it, right? So I think that's probably the start. But again, that could be said for all 3 of these characters. For Manon specifically, I don't really know where to go with her in terms of buffs yet.
It's the grapplers are so scary that you change one or 2 things with them, and they can just be incredibly dominant. Just kind of ruin the game, actually, to be blunt about it. And it's an interesting thing. So what do you give her? And my answer, I think, would be a little bit of a better way to stop drive rush. And I don't know if that means making her like a crouching light kick, like 4 frames instead of 5 frames. I don't know if that would break the character or anything like that, but gives her a little bit of a slightly better way of basically dealing with drive rush, and maybe that's it, and calling it there. So this is a big endeavor, and it's going to be probably a lot more change, but I don't think that small things are going to do too much with how she's designed right now, because she's a grappler that's good at footsies, that should be good at footsies. That's how I feel. But the footsies that she has are good, but they're very risky. And so what I would do, or what I would hope to try to keep some semblance of her, is like the whole thing is her damage output on her command grabs once she gets fed, right? Or when she gets buffed up. And that becomes super terrifying and everything. And okay, leave that there, make that scary. I would maybe turn things around so that she's playing more footsies effectively, and Manon players feel like they can do that, and that they can rely on footsie play, smart footsie play, to enhance the command grab play. And so one feeds into the other. But to do that, you'd have to do something along the general lines of maybe even bring damage down on her actual physical hits, but give them much more utility, so she can play this game that's fun and engaging, and that opens up her command grabs. And then her command grab side is kind of broken, but that's, it is what it is, and she's got to get 5 and all of that. But that's where my mind goes in terms of trying to make this character still balanced, still fun, still play well with everybody, but very engaging to actually play with and against.
This isn't necessarily a buff, but since we're kind of talking about how to make her defense more effective, one thing that is actually quite good about her is her OD up kicks, which are really fast and are only a quarter circle forward motion. So they're great for stopping neutral jumps, which is a common tactic in the corner. You've got your Lukes, your Kens, and your JPs with their ridiculous like neutral jump heavies. That's a really good move to use on reaction to get them off of you. And the fact that it's only a quarter circle motion makes it a lot easier to do than a DP and react and stuff. So that's something to keep in mind as well. If you are playing Manon and you're trying to look to increase to better improve your defense, something like that is also a pretty good tactic to use.
Well, if you like that clip from Talkin' Block, the whole episode is going to go up just a few days after this goes live. So it'll be here when it's ready. But if you need to tide yourself over, there's a ton more Talkin' Block on our channel. Here's an example right here. Very interesting conversation. You should check it out.